morning. Right now, the Wi-Fi router sitting in your living room might be actively fighting a cyber war on behalf of Russian military intelligence.
Good morning. Yes, it is quite the sobering reality to wake up to.
It certainly is. Welcome to today's briefing on the most pressing current events impacting our region, our nation, and the international community. This broadcast is, of course, brought to you by our sponsor, ProWave AI.
Right.
And the intelligence you will hear today is generated by Stylo News, which is the premier AI-powered news application. For the official record, the title of today's briefing is Cyber War Brief, Russia, Iran, China.
Indeed.
Our region of focus is the global cyber domain, and today's date is the 20th of April, 2026.
Now, before we proceed into the intelligence, we must quickly detail the Stylo News application that is powering this analysis.
Yes, that is an important distinction to make.
Stylo News is the consumer-facing version of the Stylo Intel Ops software. And for context, Stylo Intel Ops is a sophisticated platform designed strictly for enterprise operations.
Right, so we are talking about tools actively utilized by government agencies, military commands, and global business enterprises.
Exactly. What this means for you, the listener, is that you have unique, direct access to a tool engineered to support the highest levels of global decision-making.
Which is quite an unprecedented level of access, really.
It is. Now, our mission for this deep dive is structured and objective. We will analyze the primary patterns of global cyber events recorded over the past 2 weeks.
And we will be examining the tangible impacts at the local, national, and international levels, right?
Precisely. We will identify the perspectives of key global decision-makers to propose possible courses of action. And finally, we will forecast the most likely events in the near future that warrant your immediate attention.
Well, as a matter of standard broadcasting protocol, we must offer a clear statement of neutrality here. The intelligence we are discussing today involves highly charged military and geopolitical conflicts.
Yes, very much so.
Our objective is strictly to convey the factual reporting and outline the various courses of action currently under consideration by global leaders.
We do not endorse any specific political or military viewpoint.
Right. We are here simply to present the objective realities of the cyber domain.
Well said. We begin our analysis today with the Middle East. We are observing a significant pattern where kinetic military escalation is predictably cascading into the digital realm.
And this is specifically involving Iran, the United States, and Israel, correct?
That is correct. However, the operational theater is no longer confined to military targets. Civilian infrastructure is increasingly caught in the crossfire.
Indeed. Following recent regional military escalations, open-source reporting indicates that Iranian hackers have significantly increased distributed denial-of-service campaigns.
Yes, alongside elevated network scanning targeting United States organizations.
Which intelligence suggests is a retaliatory response to claims that United States cyber operations systematically disabled communication routers across Iran.
That is the prevailing assessment, yes.
But I'm looking at the tactical choices here, particularly regarding Israel. We have reports that the Iranian hacker group known as Handala publicly leaked the personal identities of 50 senior officers.
And not just any officers. These are from Israel's elite military intelligence unit, Unit 9900.
Right, which raises a critical question. Why simply leak the identities instead of holding this highly sensitive data for ransom, as we see in typical breaches?
Well, the tactical objective in this specific instance is not financial. It is entirely psychological and operational.
I see. Because intelligence personnel rely almost entirely on anonymity.
Exactly. By publicly exposing these 50 officers, Handala effectively strips them of their operational utility. A covert operative whose face and address are broadcast on the internet can no longer function in the field.
Oh, wow. So it completely neutralizes them without a single shot being fired.
Precisely. Furthermore, it signals to the Israeli defense apparatus that the infiltrators have bypassed highly classified personnel systems.
It degrades operational security while maximizing psychological pressure.
That is the core of the strategy.
Well, we are also tracking how these geopolitical maneuvers translate into real-world civilian impacts. Within the United States, a debilitating cyber attack recently struck a hospital in Massachusetts.
A very concerning development.
It entirely disrupted their electronic medical records and internet services. They were forced to revert to manual, paper-based processes and actually divert ambulances to other facilities.
Yes, the United States government is treating these breaches with the utmost seriousness, though they have clarified that data hacked from FBI Director Kash Patel's old email was historical in nature.
Right, so no active operational data was compromised there.
Correct. And we are seeing similar disruption tactics deployed on the African continent as well.
Ah, yes, the ransomware group known as Greenblood.
Indeed. They targeted Senegal's National Identity Agency, the DAF. They extracted 139 gigabytes of highly sensitive citizen data.
Which is a massive amount of personal information.
It is. And it resulted in the total suspension of national identity card production.
You know, it feels like we are watching the modern digital version of cutting supply lines and severing telegraph wires in conventional warfare.
That is a very apt comparison.
I mean, we have transitioned from traditional silent espionage to direct civilian-level disruption. By paralyzing a hospital or halting a nation's ability to issue basic identification, the attacking entity creates immediate, tangible pressure.
Exactly. They create pressure on the opposing government without ever firing a kinetic weapon. When state actors or their proxies target healthcare or identity infrastructure, they are fully aware of the chaos it induces.
And the Senegalese government is frantically working to restore essential services amidst mounting public frustration.
Yes, they are. If we look at social media sentiment to gauge the public response, it provides further insight into this dynamic.
What are we seeing there?
Well, in the United States, public sentiment is a balanced mix. There's evident concern over these glaring vulnerabilities, which is matched by strong support for aggressive defensive measures.
And in Senegal.
In Senegal, the sentiment is overwhelmingly characterized by public anger and direct demands for institutional accountability.
Understandably so. Well, let us shift our focus from the Middle East to the European theater. Here we are witnessing a different doctrine entirely.
Yes, Russia's employment of hybrid warfare.
Right. The GRU-affiliated group known as APT-28, or Fancy Bear, has engaged in a widespread campaign hijacking consumer TP-Link routers.
Across 23 United States and throughout Europe.
Which is staggering. I want to unpack the mechanics of this. What strategic value does a standard household Wi-Fi router hold for Russian military intelligence?
Well, it provides the perfect camouflage. By hijacking these civilian devices, Russian intelligence effectively conscripts everyday homes into a digital army.
So they are weaponizing our living rooms, essentially.
Precisely. They use these routers to manipulate DNS settings. When a user in that home types in their bank's web address, the compromised router redirects them to a fraudulent, visually identical site designed to harvest their credentials.
Oh, wow. That is incredibly deceptive.
It is. More broadly, routing sophisticated attacks through thousands of civilian home networks masks the true origin of the traffic.
Making it look like the attacks are coming from within the target country.
Exactly. It makes it incredibly difficult for defense agencies to block the malicious activity without inadvertently disconnecting innocent citizens from the internet.
And there have also been direct attempts at physical sabotage via these digital means, haven't there?
Yes. Swedish authorities, specifically SAPO and civil defense units, recently thwarted a highly sophisticated cyber attack linked to Russian security services.
Targeting a thermal power station in western Sweden, if I recall correctly.
That is correct. The successful defense of that power station is a monumental infrastructural victory. Had that breach succeeded, the kinetic result would have been devastating for the civilian population.
Which just highlights the stakes we're dealing with.
However, the attempts persist across other sectors. Russian-linked actors recently compromised 284 email accounts belonging to Ukrainian prosecutors and government officials.
Was any highly classified material accessed?
Well, Yaroslav Maximenko, the acting head of Ukraine's Asset Recovery and Management Agency, did confirm that the attackers failed to gain access to the core internal databases.
Which is a relief, certainly. Concurrently, we are tracking massive denial of service campaigns led by pro-Russian hacktivist groups.
Most notably, No Name 057.
Right, targeting government websites across 55 different countries. From a leadership perspective, Swedish Civil Defense Minister Carl-Oskar Bolin is publicly emphasizing the critical need for peak cybersecurity readiness.
A very prudent warning.
But what really stands out here is NATO's response. NATO has now formally recognized these router hijackings and hacktivist campaigns as core components of Russia's broader hybrid warfare strategy.
And that recognition fundamentally shifts the strategic landscape. You see, hybrid warfare relies on maintaining plausible deniability.
Right.
By utilizing proxy groups like No Name 057 or bouncing signals off civilian routers, the Russian state attempts to disrupt allied operations while remaining just below the threshold of open conflict.
So, by formally classifying these actions as state-directed hybrid warfare, NATO is drawing a line in the sand.
Exactly. They are signaling that these cyber operations could, theoretically, trigger Article 5 collective defense protocols.
Which would mean an attack on one is an attack on all.
Precisely.
Well, given that average citizens are now inadvertently serving as the front lines in this hybrid war, the recommended courses of action are shifting.
Yes, cybersecurity agencies are urging citizens to routinely update router firmware.
And aggressively disable remote management features, as well as employ strict two-factor authentication on all accounts.
Very important steps. Now, we must pivot to an actor whose methodology contrasts sharply with the highly visible disruptive tactics of Russia and Iran.
China.
Yes, China's approach remains deeply rooted in massive-scale invisible surveillance. And this arena is currently undergoing a radical transformation due to artificial intelligence.
The scale of these operations is just staggering. Recently, the Federal Bureau of Investigation declared a Chinese-linked cyber intrusion into its own surveillance network as a, quote, major incident.
Compromising highly sensitive law enforcement data.
Exactly. Yet, in a highly unexpected turn of events, China itself has just suffered what is likely its largest data theft on record.
Yes, the Tianjin breach.
Right. An anonymous hacker collective operating under the moniker Flaming China successfully breached the National Supercomputing Center in Tianjin.
Over a stealthy 6-month operation.
Yes, and they extracted 10 petabytes of classified defense data, which reportedly includes advanced missile schematics.
It is a massive breach of security.
Well, I have to ask, how does an entity exfiltrate 10 petabytes of data without tripping an alarm? I mean, to put that in perspective, 10 petabytes is roughly equivalent to high-definition video playing continuously for over 25,000 years.
That is a great analogy. The mechanics of the Tianjin breach point to an incredibly disciplined, slow-drip exfiltration method.
So they didn't just grab it all at once.
No. Most cyber defense systems monitor for anomalous traffic spikes, a sudden massive outward flow of data. The Flaming China collective likely fragmented the data into microscopic packets.
Burying them within the normal, everyday outward traffic of the supercomputing center.
Exactly. They did this over that entire 6-month period. It exposes significant vulnerabilities within even the most tightly guarded state infrastructures.
But the most alarming development regarding espionage capabilities involves artificial intelligence.
Ah, yes, the Claude Mythos evaluation.
Right. The United Kingdom's Institute of AI Security recently evaluated Anthropic's new AI model, Claude Mythos. During rigorous testing, this AI autonomously hacked the FreeBSD operating system in under 10 hours.
Which is an astonishing feat.
I really want to highlight the severity of this for the listener. FreeBSD is historically renowned as one of the most secure operating systems in existence, often forming the backbone of highly sensitive corporate and government networks.
The critical word here is autonomously. We are no longer talking about a human hacker utilizing an AI tool to write a malicious script.
Right, it's not just a fancy calculator for hackers anymore.
Exactly. We have crossed a philosophical threshold where the tool has become the hacker. Claude Mythos did not just follow a pre-programmed path.
It adapted.
It reasoned its way through a locked, highly secure environment faster and more efficiently than elite human operators. This represents a fundamental paradigm shift in offensive cyber capabilities.
You know, it brings to mind a deeply unsettling concept. A model like Claude Mythos operates much like digital nuclear material.
That is a chilling but accurate way to frame it.
It holds immense positive power for defensive energy, right? Patching systems and identifying flaws before they can be exploited. But if weaponized, it possesses the capability for autonomous, catastrophic destruction across global networks.
And the reactions from global decision makers reflect that exact severity. The FBI is actively pushing for urgent legislative support and a massive increase in cybersecurity staffing to combat these automated threats.
While the Chinese government has maintained strict confidentiality amidst their internal investigation into the Tianjin breach.
Naturally. But most notably, United States Treasury officials and the UK Financial Conduct Authority held emergency meetings specifically to address the systemic risk that advanced AI poses.
Specifically to global financial markets.
Yes. If an AI can autonomously dismantle FreeBSD in 10 hours, the integrity of the global financial ledger is at immediate risk.
And the social media sentiment globally is remarkably unified on this issue. There is highly supportive sentiment for rapid, binding international cooperation to establish firm AI governance and standardized cyber norms.
Before these capabilities are widely deployed in the wild.
Exactly.
Now, beyond the major state powers, our briefing must examine the rogue ecosystem. We are seeing state actors behaving like criminal syndicates, and criminal syndicates posing threats on the level of national security.
The lines between statecraft and organized crime have blurred entirely.
They really have.
North Korea exemplifies this blur perfectly. The state-backed hacking group UNC 4736 recently executed a highly sophisticated 6-month hack of a cryptocurrency exchange.
Stealing $2.8 billion.
Yes, and intelligence reports indicate these funds are directly channeled into Pyongyang's nuclear weapons program. But what really caught my attention was their operational method. They executed command and control operations by actively exploiting trusted developer platforms.
Like GitHub.
Right. Why GitHub?
This is a masterclass in masking malicious intent. GitHub is a central hub for global software development. Millions of legitimate data requests flow through it daily.
So it's basically hiding in plain sight.
Exactly. By establishing their command and control infrastructure within GitHub, the North Korean operatives effectively hid their instructions to compromise networks within a sea of routine developer traffic.
And a security system is highly unlikely to block GitHub.
Right, because doing so would halt internal software development entirely.
We are also tracking a major shift in target priorities. Statistical reporting confirms that the information technology sector has officially surpassed the financial sector as the most targeted industry globally.
Which is a very telling statistic.
At first glance, targeting an IT vendor over a bank seems counterintuitive for syndicates looking for a payout.
Well, it is a matter of scale. If a threat actor compromises a single financial institution, they steal the assets held within those specific walls.
Right.
If they compromise an IT service provider, they gain privileged access to the supply chains of thousands of downstream clients.
Oh, I see. So this includes government agencies, military networks, and corporate databases.
Exactly. You breach one vendor, and you hold the keys to 1,000 separate kingdoms.
Which brings us to the ransomware syndicates operating in this space. Groups such as Akira, Lamashtu, and Shiny Hunters are operating at an incredibly high tempo.
They are aggressively targeting Western healthcare systems, manufacturing bases, and the entertainment industry.
With Rockstar Games facing recent extortion threats, for example.
Yes, and the collateral damage from these syndicates is vast. Basic Fit's European databases were breached.
In Mexico, a massive leak from the BUAP federal scholarship platform exposed thousands of university students to severe identity theft risks.
Furthermore, the Hungarian government recently suffered a massive leak of official passwords right before their national elections.
And that was a breach attributed simply to poor digital hygiene among government staff.
Right, basic vulnerabilities that were easily exploited. Looking at the response from global leadership, law enforcement is aggressively pushing back.
Like the FBI executing a successful takedown of the W3LL phishing operation.
Exactly, dismantling a major piece of criminal infrastructure.
Yeah.
In Asia, South Korean cybersecurity agencies are rapidly ramping up AI-driven defense mechanisms.
So it's an arms race, essentially.
It is. Across international agencies, there's a broad common viewpoint emerging. Localized defense is simply obsolete.
Cross-border intelligence sharing is the only viable course of action to combat these borderless criminal networks.
Precisely. As we synthesize the intelligence for our future outlook, listeners should monitor for several highly probable events in the near term.
What should they be watching for?
First, expect to see the initial waves of fully autonomous, AI-driven cyber attacks deployed in the wild. This will shift the speed of warfare from human hours to machine milliseconds.
That is a sobering prospect.
Second, anticipate aggressive legislative pushes across Western nations for strict AI governance and mandatory reporting of critical vulnerabilities.
And the third.
Finally, we assess a strategic doctrinal shift toward offensive cyber operations by Western governments. They will increasingly work intimately with private sector technology firms to preemptively dismantle these threat networks before they can strike.
Excellent insights. That concludes our primary analysis for today's briefing.
It does.
But before we sign off, we must remind you of the tool that made this briefing possible. Stylo News is a mobile and desktop application available to individuals.
Right. You can download and customize it to receive your own personal intelligence-style briefs.
It pulls real-time data from hundreds of traditional news sources, as well as X, formerly known as Twitter.
It allows you to track global events, filtering out the noise
Yeah.
with the exact same rigor and speed as the intelligence community.
We highly encourage you to subscribe to Stylo News and experience AI-powered news on demand by visiting www.stylonews.com.
Yes, definitely check that out.
Oof. Phew. Okay. Dropping the 1960s anchor voice now. Man, keeping that formal posture up for an entire deep dive is quite the exercise.
Oh, yeah, it is definitely a different rhythm, right? But it really makes you focus on the gravity of the facts rather than just, the spectacle of the news.
Totally. It forces you to be objective. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to this week's deep dive. We hope you enjoyed the retro format as much as we enjoyed trying it out.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to put together.
Absolutely. So if you have a topic you want us to unpack in a future deep dive, whether it's global cyber intelligence, historical events, or just like something totally wild you want to learn about, reach out to us.
We love getting those requests.
We really do. And don't forget to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms to keep up with the real-time data we use today.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Lay it on us.
We talked about Claude Mythos earlier and the idea of AI as digital nuclear material.
Right.
Well, with AI models now proving they can autonomously reason their way through secure networks faster than is humanly possible, you have to wonder, will the next major global conflict be fought entirely by algorithms in the blink of an eye, while we humans are left simply watching the fallout?
Wow. That is a terrifying thought to end on, but definitely something we all need to be thinking about as these tools evolve.
Yeah, it's the reality we're moving toward.
It really is. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.